Heresy. That's what you get punished for. Not for being part of the resistance. Because officially, there is no resistance. Not for helping people escape. Because officially, there's no such thing as escape.
You working hard?
Yes.
More like hardly working. Let's start the show!
Lazy handmade.
So weird that they would make that lazy joke.
Welcome to Cordkillers, the show about watching the stuff you love when you want, where you want, however you want. I'm Tom Merritt.
Hey man, I'm Brian Brushwood, and that was the intro. Or wait, was that actually footage from season 3 of The Handmaid's Tale, or was that all season 2 stuff?
That was a trailer. That was a trailer for season 3.
Oh, yeah, now I can watch season 2.
You should watch season 2. Season 2 is good, except for like the last. I think the last episode will be good when there's another season right after it.
Yeah, right.
Is it
Yeah,
soul-crushingly depressive the way the whole first season was?
Yes.
Okay. More of the same.
Joining us today, we have a very special guest, Chuck Wendig, author of Star Wars Aftermath series and Wanderers, coming July 2nd. Welcome, Chuck.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, most importantly, a noted fellow Fox expert. We bonded.
Fox enthusiast. I don't know if I'm an expert. Enthusiast.
We bonded over the wild foxes on our territory, which patrons will get to enjoy in the After Talk segment at the end of all of this.
It's exciting for them.
Yeah, honestly, the reason I thought to invite Chuck on is I saw all the Fox pictures on social media and was like, hey, my friend Brian likes foxes too. He has some.
Get on the show. The foxes don't have cords.
We will, of course, also be talking about Fox Television Network and both the Disney-owned Fox properties, the not Disney-owned Fox properties, the foxes on Brian's property. Wait, now I'm confused. Let's just move on to the primary talk.
That was smooth, Tom.
Actually, we're going to start talking about YouTube. They announced an originals slate. So the rumors of originals at YouTube are wildly exaggerated. They're going to focus on 3 areas going forward. Music, no big surprise. Learning, how-to videos are big on YouTube, and personality-driven program. I think that's the one that leaves them open to experiment a little. Cobra Kai is getting a season 3. That's official, even before season 2 is out. YouTube also renewed its Kevin Hart comedy series, approved Maluma and Paris Hilton documentaries, and announced a Lollapalooza live streaming deal, which their Coachella live streaming has been very successful, so I guess that makes sense. YouTube also announced the first details of its single slate strategy, where they will make originals available for free with ads rather than only available to the subscribers of the $12 a month YouTube Premium program. However, it's not just everything's free with ads or you pay to get rid of ads. For instance, free users will get season 1 of Cobra Kai from August 29th to September 11th. Then the next day, season 2 debuts for free. Well, actually, I guess it debuts on September 11th. And new episodes of Cobra Kai will be available for free weekly, but there's no guarantee they'll stick around on the free tier. More free ad-supported premiere dates will be announced later. So again, not everything made free. And according to YouTube, original content last year had 2.5 billion views across 50 shows.
I'll tell you what, all of this makes a lot of sense. I think it's a smart move. I always thought that YouTube trying to play Hollywood was a bit of a weird move in that it was ignoring the homegrown or heroes that they had created on the platform. Seems like this is a return to form that's going to reward the folks who were there from the very beginning. Also, I think I'm fine with adding ads and time windowing. I think that does make sense. That's something they couldn't do right out of the gates with the premium originals, but now that they have a big enough back catalog, they could start playing that game. What say you, Chuck? Do you subscribe to the YouTube premiums?
I do not right now, in part because it's kind of a very noisy digital environment for that sort of thing, which is why I think the free thing makes even more sense, because they're arguably getting ahead of maybe what's to come, which is a glut of options for people out there. So I think that's a smart move, and I'm into it.
Yeah, I guess if I have a criticism of this, I feel like I agree with you, Brian, that they sort of had to do it the way they did it at first. But if you're going to make it free with ads, just make it free with ads. I don't think you lose much if you say that premium maybe get some early debuts or something like that, or maybe some back catalog is a little bigger. But this weird thing of like, well, season 1 will be there at these dates, but then it goes away. I think that's going to be confusing to people. On the other hand, I don't think people do appointment viewing on YouTube much, so maybe it's fine.
I think I would have agreed with you 100% just 2 months ago, but recently I got into what was it, Headlong or Headstrong, whatever their new series is, running from cops, and it's on Stitcher Premium. There is a free feed, and every episode, like, there's no ads on it, but they keep coming in saying like, hey man, if you're digging this and can't wait to just binge it, why don't you sign up for Stitcher Premium? And that is a pretty compelling argument. I keep almost like, no, I can wait another week for another episode. If YouTube can start playing that same game, because to be honest, the being ad free, that ad free lifestyle in the premium side of things, I never would have done it just for ad free. But I did it so I could binge all of Cobra Kai. So I think there is something as a gateway to get people into the environment. They tell themselves, oh, I'm just going to do it for this one thing. But then they figure out, like, it's kind of nice having no ads. And then they stick around.
Just to get a taste, man. Just to get that taste.
Yeah, exactly. First dose is free, right?
First dose is free.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I don't think it's wrong either way, like you say, because I don't think anybody's going to be frustrated with YouTube because things disappear from free. That said, I maybe they just can't make as much money off the free stuff as they can off the premium stuff.
How do we feel about this thematic thing of this? Because it's so weird, because the most successful property, to my viewpoint, is Cobra Kai, which is the one thing that is not being catered to in
like
this holy
music,
trinity.
Learning, personality driven, and Cobra Kai, because that seemed to work.
Yeah, I don't think anybody, I think in general, what that says to me is that in general, the narrative Hollywood style storytelling didn't land and didn't do well, but there is this one outlier that is universally beloved and very, very good. So you're not going to shut that down. So, but in the meanwhile, lean into everything else that works for you, I guess.
Yeah, maybe it's, we don't know how to replicate Cobra Kai, but we certainly would be dumb to cancel it. So.
Yeah. And the rest of it is just YouTube gonna YouTube.
Yeah.
Did Chuck, did you get a chance to give any of the Cobra Kai stuff a chance yet?
I watched some of the first season and I like it a lot. It's I need the rest of it.
It's shockingly good.
It's surprisingly sharp. Like, that's some sharp. Like, what? Like, where did that come from? It's just one of those things where I'm still puzzling over how good a show is like that. Then I didn't anticipate it coming. I didn't think it should be a thing. I would have never been like, yeah, that should be a show. And it is, and it's great. Agreed.
And in fact, I'm holding off on watching season 2 as a treat, but now that season 3 is announced and we have a timeline for it, I might as well dive in on that. What about you, Tom?
Yeah, you can debut for free September 11th.
There it is.
Yeah. It is definitely on the list of things that I have to remember to go watch, because everybody who I respect says it's good. And I know I grew up watching the movies and everything, so I'll have the nostalgia hit on top of it. Maybe this will make me do it.
I mean, I'll go a step farther and say it's not just good, it's really great, because it's so savvy to how much has changed over the last 35 years.
It's arguably better than the film.
I agree. And
that's like where it's really bizarre. You're like, it'd be like doing some weird like Back to the Future sequel that's like just better than Back to the Future. Like in a TV show, and it's marginal and strange, but better.
Yeah, totally agreed.
Well, you should also agree to support us on Patreon, folks, because you know what? We don't have any other way of supporting this show. So we need you. Please. $1 is all we ask at the minimum. Please give more if you want. I mean, we do have foxes to feed around here, but there is a $1 minimum to get in the door, and we make it worth your while, right, Brian?
Oh, heck yeah, man. Are you kidding? You get your own RSS feed where you get both the full show and spoiler in time all in one big block, plus After Talk, where we talk about foxes today. But the point is you get to be our boss. You get the smug satisfaction of giving us an infinity raise. Right now, a bunch of guys are paying us $0. Pay us any amount of dollars, and you get to give us an infinite raise and get to feel like a total badass. By the way, I think last week we set up the challenge of if we were able to get 10 new patrons, we would have our friend Amos watch all of the MCU movies backwards, having not seen hardly any of them, just to give us a report on what that's like. So if you want to make insane performance art like that happen, why don't you become a boss over at patreon.com/Cordkillers.
You also get a free fox in a box.
Free fox in a box?
Possibly.
Probably.
Free Fox may not be guaranteed. Time to talk about how to watch. Hulu has topped 28 million total subscribers, up 12% so far in 2019, partially because they dropped the price. You may have forgotten it, and while everyone else is raising its price, Hulu dropped the price of its ad-supported subscription plan to $5.99 a month back in February. It used to be $7.99. The streaming venture's ongoing investments in content and technology mean it's going to keep operating at a loss for the next few years, but its new owner, majority owner Disney, is fine with that. They're just going to keep pouring stuff into it. And in fact, at their new front presentation last week, we got a lot of stuff. So we'll go through it piece by piece, starting with Marvel and Hulu live action. Oh, look, Marvel's in the Disney family. Hulu's now in the Disney family. Ghost Rider and Hellstrom are now coming to Hulu. Gabriel Luna will reprise the role of Robbie Reyes, Ghost Rider. And in Hellstrom, Damon and Anna Hellstrom are the son and daughter of a mysterious and powerful serial killer. The siblings have a complicated dynamic as they track down the terrorizing worst of humanity, supposedly, says Deadline. From the sound of it, Hellstrom sounds a lot like the Marvel book character Damon Hellstrom, who was also known as Hellstrom and Son of Satan, first appearing in Ghost Rider before getting the Son of Satan comic book series. He has demonic abilities and the ability to travel back and forth between hell. So this may be a Ghost Rider extended universe on Hulu, Brian.
Could totally work. Meanwhile, the fact that Hulu hits that $28 million number, and it's attributed to the reduction of the ad-supported platform.
In part.
But remember at the time that they pulled two moves. They actually increased the price of the ad-free version, but also dropped the price of the ad-supported version. And it seems like that totally paid off. I remember at the time us being not entirely convinced that was going to be go over well, but clearly it did.
What do you think of Marvel TV coming to Hulu, Chuck?
I'm into it, especially if we're leaning finally into kind of like Marvel horror stuff. And Ghost Rider has traditionally not fared super great on screens. So, man, if they can get that right, I'm sold. And Hellstrom, that's a weird pick, but like, okay.
Yeah, I wonder if this isn't some kind of answer to Netflix's Sabrina Teenage Witch stuff that they're doing. Yeah, because that got
Netflix losing Marvel stuff.
Both of those things. Yeah. Hulu has given out series orders to the dramas Nine Perfect Strangers, starring Nicole Kidman, and The Dropout with Kate McKinnon. That is about Theranos CEO Elizabeth Holmes and based on an ABC News podcast about her. Nine Perfect Strangers is based on the book by the same author who did Big Little Lies, Leanne Moriarty. Big Little Lies, of course, big hit with Nicole Kidman starring on HBO. Bruna Papandrea, who was an executive producer on Big Little Lies, is on Nine Perfect Strangers for Hulu, along with Big Little Lies creator and executive producer David E. Kelly. Kelly and John Henry Butterworth will serve as co-writers and showrunners. So it seems like a lot of the Big Little Lies magic coming to Hulu here.
Yeah, I wish I was more familiar with any of this. Chuck, have you been following any of these properties?
No. I mean, I know that the story of the Theranos stuff, but I mean, I don't know what the show is going to look like. Kate McKinnon is
Holmes. That's interesting.
I like it, but I mean, I'm curious what the property is going to look like then, because there's an absurdity to that whole story, and I feel like maybe they'd be turning that into something more comic. Because I mean, how can you not have Kate McKinnon and not be funny or absurd in some way?
I think the impression I get from this variety story anyway is that it will not be comic. And maybe this is Kate McKinnon having her moment where she's like, yeah, I can do more than that. I want to be like Bill Murray, Tom Hanks, etc.
Bryan Cranston. Bryan Cranston was always funny up until he was very much not funny. And it turns out he's good at being not funny.
Yeah.
Hulu has ordered its second seasons of the comedies Pen 15 and Rami. That comes 2 weeks after they renewed their other sitcom Shrill, which also only had one season. Pen 15 and Rami currently rank among the top 10 new TV shows on Metacritic, with Shrill at number 18.
Man, that's huge. That makes me feel like I want to dive in on that, but I don't know anything about him.
I'm excited for Shrill. That's good news.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah.
Cool. Chrissy Teigen, David Chang, in partnership with Vox's Eater blog, will make several food shows with the working title Family Style as one of them. That will emphasize how food fosters familial and social connections. Also in the works, a foodie travelogue dubbed Eater's Guide to the World.
And these will show up on which platform? Do we know yet?
These are on Hulu. These are all on Hulu.
Okay, got it. Man, Hulu crushing it. Again, I'm not a food person, but I know that relationships and food are both popular.
Yeah, I am a total food person, and I am a sucker for every Netflix food porn extravaganza. I'm into it. They have a great, street food show on right now, and I'm into it. So Hulu, sign me up for all of that.
And people are attracted to these kinds of shows, and Hulu's smart to try to get some of that magic over there. Partnering with Eater brings some cred to it. Yeah. Get some eyes from people who know the foodie scene. Partnering with Chrissy Teigen and David Chang obviously brings you a big name chef. Chrissy Teigen, if you don't realize, has got some very successful cookbooks out there and has been promoting food. I think these are all good moves for Hulu. All that matters is if the shows are good. And then finally, Hulu's Veronica Mars has a new trailer and its first hints of plot for the July 26th return of the show. It looks like Veronica Mars is in a high-stakes crime wave in Neptune.
Sold. Hook it up. I want
done.
all of it.
You're in.
Require every piece of this.
There was a bombing designed to destroy the spring break attraction of Neptune. Patton Oswalt and J.K. Simmons make appearances. I mean, you didn't need any more reasons, but there's 2 more.
Yep.
Hulu will also have all the previous seasons and the film in their on-demand library by July 26th.
Tell you what, man, if you want to buy a committed fan base whole hog, you can't do worse than Veronica Mars, man.
That's right. Marshmallows, bring it home. I'm in.
I love that some of my favorite Austin musicians' music was featured in Veronica Mars because Rob Thomas from Austin had that connection. So I've always had a soft spot for Veronica Mars.
As a matter of fact,
huge fan too.
I don't know if I mentioned this on this particular show. I'm sure I mentioned it before, but the first time I ever heard of Veronica Mars was because our friends over in Kissinger who play Vicario, that what we use as the opening song for Night Attack, had 3 or 4 of their songs featured on there.
Fire Marshals of Bethlehem was how it was basically the same story, but just sub in the band Fire Marshals of Bethlehem. And that's how I found out about Veronica Mars back in the day. It's great.
The first season of that show is, for me, one of the perfect TV seasons. So.
Did you watch the movie?
I did, and it wasn't great. It was okay. I liked it, and it had some good fan service in there and some nice little callbacks. But it was not exactly what I wanted from. But because it's a TV format, Veronica Mars works well in TV, less in film.
And so it didn't sour you on this because of that.
No, it didn't sour me on it. It was good. I enjoyed it enough, but I really just wanted more. 2 hours or an hour and a half was just an appetizer, an appetizer.
Yeah. Getting back to that food metaphor.
See?
All right. Let's talk about what to watch in Under Surveillance.
It's all about location.
Under surveillance.
The Spider-Man Far From Home trailer is very spoilery of Avengers Endgame. Do not watch if you do not want to be spoiled about parts of Avengers Endgame. However, it also looks pretty cool, and as I will talk about further on Spoiler in Time, really, really nails home how wrong I am about Avengers Endgame. Spider-Man Far From Home is coming out July 2nd.
I couldn't bring myself to watch the trailer, Tom, because I'm already all in on it. Emotionally, did it change anything for you as far as your excitement about it?
Yes, I was already excited about it, but this gave me an idea of the tone of this movie and where it's going, and I'm even more excited about it.
I'm more excited. Before I watched the first one, I was like, fine, looks cool. I kind of felt that about the original Spider-Man Homecoming trailers. It was looks fine. I'm into it. And then it was great. So this makes me feel more kind of interested.
And I will spoil you on one aspect of the trailer during Spoiler in Time, Brian. But there's one moment where if I had already not given up on my objections to the time travel segments of things last week, this would have put that last nail in the coffin, which it did. So anyway, more on that to come. The trailer for the movie version of Sonic the Hedgehog dropped last week.
Oops.
To varying levels of criticism, especially around Sonic and especially around his teeth. Director Jeff Fowler responded to the criticism, saying, "The message is loud and clear. You aren't happy with the design and you want changes. It's going to happen. Everyone at Paramount and Sega are fully committed to making this character the best he can be. They've got until November 15th to do that."
What was the beef with the teeth?
He's got human teeth.
like human teeth, not even like cartoony human teeth. Looks like someone put the dentures in a furry costume. It's so strange. Very upsetting.
Yeah, that trailer was bad. It was as though a team got together and said, what if we did Detective Pikachu, but bad? And then they made this.
You know how they de-age characters? I felt like somehow they de-aged the performance of Jim Carrey to an earlier part of his career. Like or transported him from the 90s into this role. Yeah,
the whole thing felt a little 90s era.
Yeah.
And not in a good way.
Not in a we meant it kitschy kind of way.
No, like an oops. This is
so
we're not supposed to do this. Yeah.
In that regard, like how much respect do we have for him just owning it? Like, hear you loud and clear. We'll do our best. Be right back.
It's cool, right? But also then you're like, are the animators going to be just like shackled to their desks, just like sleepless nights of like get his crotch right, his knees are wrong, hurry, and then just
a bigger bulge.
Bigger bulge.
There's two problems with doing it this way. I mean, because I think it's the right impulse, but one is so you didn't have a proper sort of image of what this should be at the beginning if you're willing to fold that quick.
Yeah.
And so is it going to be a battle you can never win? Yeah. Is every rev of this going to cause somebody, because, as we all know, everybody's angry on the internet somewhere. At what point do you feel like you've satisfied people?
Yeah, that's the question, right? And then the other question is, if they got it so quote unquote wrong in the beginning, why would we expect the movie to have gotten it right? Like if they're just like, this is what Sonic looks like in our demented nightmare brain.
No,
and I suspect if the comedic timing was better, because every single bit of that trailer fell flat. I have to imagine, even if it wasn't what people were expecting, if any of it landed, we wouldn't have seen this harsh of a backlash against it.
When it was funny, like everyone always said, like the kids will like it at least. Like this is just adults being jerky adults online, but my son, who's 7, about to be 8, watched it. And as soon as it ended, he just goes, "Ew!" Like, oh, yeah. Maybe,
well, yeah. Compare this to Aladdin, where people said, well, "I guess most of the trailer is fine, but whoa, that genie, that's weird looking." Yeah. And then the next trailer, they didn't say anything, they didn't promise to fix anything, but the next trailer showed like, oh, okay, it's not always going to look that
all
way.
right.
Yeah. Voodoo announced its first slate of original programming. Voodoo is the online service from Walmart that provides the ability to buy TV shows and movies. They also have some free streaming movies. They're now going to have free streaming originals, including a series based on the movie Mr. Mom, a series called Friends in Strange Places, which is a travel and comedy show that Queen Latifah is attached to as an executive producer, a science fiction series called Albedo starring Evangeline Lilly, Turning Points with Randy Jackson, which is an interview documentary series, and Blues, Clues, and You, a reboot of the children's series with Nickelodeon on board as a partner. Adventure Force 5 is a movie about a band of tech-minded teenagers who save their town from aliens. And finally, a weekly entertainment magazine with Variety called Variety's First Look.
So that Mr. Mom property is really interesting to me, partly because what made that movie great in the early 80s was two things. First of all, the comedic talents of Michael Keaton, which will, I assume, not be in this television show.
Yeah,
and,
good guess.
And also the general novel, air quotes at the time, idea of a dad being a stay-at-home figure, which, of course,
wacky
is not wacky nowadays.
No,
in fact,
he's just the babysitter.
Right. And so I can't imagine that they're going to lean into how wacky it is that he's trying to be a dad at home. So I don't know what they have to hang their hat on.
That for? Yeah.
Yeah, those are all the right questions. I don't think they're unsolvable questions. You could reboot it as showing how stay-at-home dads are the new norm and what's life like, and you just have to have the right writers and right actors on board. But a lot of questions around.
Yeah,
that.
You know what? I can see that as like maybe a progressive family from the West Coast ends up in Middle America where nobody understands that he's a stay-at-home dad. Blah 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 blah.
Not all Middle Americans, Brian. Come on.
Okay. Defensive much? Yeah. But I don't know. I'll be curious to see what they decide to do with that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I also think it's just a really interesting strategy for Voodoo to come up with, these may not all be good, but they're quality attempts at original shows. These aren't, cheap straight to DVD style shows. You got Queen Latifah attached. You got Evangeline Lilly. You got Blues Clues.
Yeah, Blues Clues is legacy kids property.
Yeah, and then saying, you know what? We know you're tired of subscribing to a bunch of things. Here they are for free.
I'll tell you, it'd be
With that.
really interesting is in the Blues Clues to see whether or not they're able to get Steve to make cameos or whatever, because I know Steve didn't want to be for anyone who has a child, he didn't want to be the Blues Clues guy and wanted to do other stuff, and so he left, and the show promptly died 2 seasons later. But it would be fun if they were able to give him something that would make it fun for him to be involved again.
Were there like conspiracy theories about him or weird like urban legends about Steve from Blue's Clues? I seem to remember that, but I don't remember what they were.
Specifically, if I remember correctly, like, and I don't even think it was a conspiracy theory. It's like he was in a death metal band or something like that. The kind of stuff that sounds salacious to when you're 9 years old. Right.
Satan, and you're like, no.
Yeah, but I mean, hell yeah, be in a death metal band. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah,
Go for it.
I was in a
amazing.
death metal band in high school. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
Right on.
They were
Whatever.
called Roadkill.
Hey, hail Satan.
Yeah. Quint, one of the things that excites me about the period we're in is, yes, it's confusing and there's too many streaming services and the prices are all over the place and we don't know if it's really actually going to save us money at any point over cable or not, but at least we have control. But there's also so much interesting experimentation going on, and not every one of them is going to work. But Quentin Tarantino is turning the extended version of the Hateful Eight movie into a miniseries. Now, there are 6 chapters in Hateful Eight. The miniseries is going to be 4 50-minute episodes. So, I don't know. That's what he wanted to do. Includes 25 minutes of extra content that wasn't in the original movie. Some scenes are even from a different perspective. And Tarantino says it's an experiment Netflix asked him to do, and he wanted to try it. So, here you go.
I'll tell you what, man, it worked out so well for Dune. Why not try it again?
What about The Godfather?
Did they do that? Actually,
they took The Godfather and Godfather 2, re-edited them as a miniseries event on broadcast television in the mid-70s.
Was it good?
It was huge. And they had extra content that wasn't in the original movies.
Oh, snap. That's how you do it. Yeah.
Yep.
But the Hateful Eight is not The Godfather.
No, it is not.
Its cultural impact is
It may not
far,
be Dune,
less. Yeah.
but it's not The Godfather.
Yeah,
No.
for the uninitiated, Dune was such a colossal box office failure that they redid it as a miniseries. And it's so funny because you could see that the new footage that they added in there, they never got around to colorizing the eyes blue. Yeah. So it's like you have this weird,
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, no, it's really bizarre. But having said all that, confession time, I've not seen The Hateful Eight. Maybe I'll watch it this way first and then watch the movie.
I tried and I keep falling asleep on it.
I haven't seen it either.
Yeah, it's Tarantino sort of reduced to the pure Tarantino thing and then like drawn out.
It's like,
what?
I found it kind of tough. Like it was like, yeah.
What if, Brian, you watched the miniseries and I watched the original, and then we do spoiler in time?
Oh, but then we wouldn't have a way to fight because we'd have two different
you would find a way to fight.
Oh, we'll find a way.
Good point, Bryce.
Looks like we might still get more than one Game of Thrones successor series. George R.R. Martin wrote in his most recent blog post that what we already knew, that there were 5 different Game of Thrones successor shows in development at one time. And HBO has, of course, greenlit what George R.R. Martin says I am not supposed to call The Long Night, that starts shooting later this year. That's the one that takes place at the origination of the White Walkers. He says there are 2 others that are still in the script stage but are edging closer. What are they about? I cannot say, he writes. But maybe some of you should pick up a copy of Fire and Blood and come up with your own theories, which is an ingenious way to sell more copies of Fire and Blood, but I also think is probably true.
What a remarkable age we live in of social media where you could get away with even saying this much. Like, I remember just 10 years ago, that's the kind of thing that giving anything that smelled like a hint of an announcement would have gotten you in a lot of trouble and breach of contract. But now I feel like a lot of these guys understand the value of just creating general buzz and that line shifts. Chuck, I'm sure you're familiar with these kind of agreements. Is it weird to you that this kind of talking around things that are in the works?
No, I think it first of all makes a lot of sense because it comes more as a listen. I think we're becoming trained to kind of ignore things that are through official channels, like especially just a press release or an article. You're like, okay, I get it. It's news, and the news is massaged a certain way, and everyone's excited. But when someone like George R. R. Martin shows up and people like him personally or listen to him personally or like his books, that's a different kind of vibe. And you can certainly feel it too. Like we do a lot of author promotion at my blog, Terrible Minds, and there's a big difference between when an author comes on to sort of do a promotional thing or when they come on to do a more authentic discussion about the book. And that's what we try to encourage, is them to say things that are a little more personal to them. And so I think it connects more. And I also find that, like, in doing projects for myself, I'm seeing less and less of that, restriction on what you can and cannot say. They're a little less handsy with that.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, I'm excited that there are at least a couple more concepts kicking around out there. I want them to be good. But I was a little disappointed when they went straight to the prequel, and I was like, oh, what about Dunk and Egg? I thought that was a good idea, which apparently Dunk and Egg wasn't even one of these anyway.
Yeah.
But, there's so many places you could go. So.
Yeah, I'm wary of prequel material. Like, prequel material is tough. It's like you're always pinned in by what's to come. Like, you can't really get past your end point is always someone else's beginning point, so you're trapped.
Mm-hmm. Although I do feel like if you go back far enough in time, like I think Knights of the Old Republic did that really well with the video games.
Yeah, because it could be Knights of the Old Republic is either a million miles in the future or in the past. It doesn't matter. Right,
exactly. Which it sounds like, from what rumors we've seen, might be the case with one of these properties.
Yeah,
with the one he is not supposed to call The Long Night.
Right.
In a similar vein, Brian, Ron Howard told MTV's Happy, Sad, Confused podcast that John Kasdan, who helped his dad Lawrence write Solo, a Star Wars story, has been hounding Ron Howard about rebooting Willow as a series for Disney Plus. Howard said the title character could be a more mature Willow, older and wiser, and presumably faster with weaponry than he once was.
Yeah, I don't have a tremendous affection for that property. Chuck, do you have warm fuzzies for Willow?
More in its idea than its actual, execution. Like, I mean, I liked it as a kid, but also it's one of those movies when you go back and watch it again, you're like, no, maybe not. But Mad Mardigan, I'll take Mad Mardigan.
Yeah, sure.
Any day of the week. Older, younger, just give me more Mad Mardigan.
Then later on, he learns how to fly a fighter jet and fights Tom Cruise. It's great.
And then he's got ice in his veins, man. Highway to the Danger Zone.
And he forms the band The Doors. It's amazing.
It's great. It's a whole legacy. It's a trilogy.
Forms the Doors. That's amazing. Does it strike you that Ron Howard was trying out the idea of a Willow reboot to see how angry people might get by? Well,
and I think this is the flip side of that talking around things, is that on the one hand, it could be used to generate buzz for things that people are excited about, but it also could be used as like an A/B testing where it's like, well, let me just say this and see what happens. Nobody's freaking out.
Balloon,
yeah. There are two kinds of people in this world: people who are excited about Willow and people who are excited about the XFL returning February 8th, 2020.
Bryce, which are you?
I don't know.
Willow, sure.
But the XFL is returning February 8th, 2020, and has announced a multi-year deal with ESPN and Fox Sports. Now, for a while, I'm going to keep doing this, so get used to it. Fox Sports, not owned by Disney. Fox Sports, part of what was left of Fox that spun out as the Fox Corporation after Disney acquired the movie studio and some of the Fox cable networks like FX. So Fox, not Disney, and ESPN getting some XFL games. They'll be shown on ABC, on the Fox Broadcast Network, and on ESPN, ESPN2, FS1, and FS2. What strikes me about this, the XFL, sort of the alternative network, the scrappy one, Vince McMahon from WWE, still on board with the XFL, not doing any kind, at least at this point, of digital service. Not a subscription of its own, not Amazon, not Twitter, nothing like that announced at this point.
So, Bryce, you recently went all in on the AAFL, right?
The AAF, yeah.
Yeah, the AAF, which was the other spring league. It died from what? Just
lack of money, partially because it actually came out this past week or two that all of their TV, they were paying to have all these TV spots.
They were essentially all infomercials.
Basically, right? And between other possible fraud indictments, it was a tough financial situation for them. So we know Vince McMahon has the money to pay for all of these TV slots, even if he has to pay for all of them. for multiple years.
So does your hunger for spring football give XFL a pass here, or
not really. I think the AAF was maybe not the best caliber of play, so I think we'll maybe, but I'm really not interested in the XFL very much. So
and is that because of just general Vince McMahon yuckiness? Okay,
yeah,
all right. Yeah.
Well, and the other thing is the XFL will be a supplementary league to the NFL, where the AAF was sort of a minor league.
Yeah, it wanted to be like a minor or a feeder league.
Like a feeder league, yeah. All right, let's talk about what we've had our eyes on lately. Chuck, something you've been watching recently you want to mention to us?
Something I've been watching recently. Obviously, Game of Thrones is like we're all kind of married to that show now. But Killing Eve is killing it. It's a great show.
I've heard so many good things about that. Yeah,
Killing Eve is so good. Really, it's just it's sharp, brilliant, mean in the best way. Mean. I love it.
And it's
Phoebe Waller-Bridge, right? I mean,
murder. It's murder and serial killer kind of stuff.
Yeah, but like vaguely, it's snarky and funny. It's like more spy than murder serial killer. She's a spy seeks an assassin, and they kind of tangle around each other and possibly, almost maybe are falling in love. Like it's a very strange. There's definitely some sort of loose romantic darkness going on between them. It's phenomenal.
Excellent. Brian, what have you been watching lately?
Dude, I showed my kids Time Bandits yesterday, and I didn't know how to introduce it. I just promised them it would be weird, and hot damn it, that movie did not deliver. But outside of that, the thing that I have loved the most in the last week I've watched has been I Think You Should Leave on Netflix.
Oh, God, that's so funny.
The first just 5 minutes. Give it the first 5 minutes of the first episode. You're either going to be all in or shrug and walk away.
I was crying.
I was howling alone in the room at like 8 a.m. I was howling and crying with laughter at it.
It's terribly amazing.
I called that number immediately in the from the lawyer in the the first commercial break. Yeah. I've had that exact problem. It's so weird. I have been watching Game of Thrones. We've been watching Barry and The Office UK for spoiler in time. But the thing that I have been watching sort of in off time this past week are the MCU movies. Yeah. I watched, this is after seeing Endgame. We watched Iron Man 3 before Endgame.
Same.
And then when I got home after Endgame, after 2 watchings of Endgame, I was like, you know what? I want to watch Iron Man. I haven't seen Iron Man in a long time. So watch Iron Man. I had never seen The Incredible Hulk with Ed Norton. So
how was it? What'd you think? Did it hold up?
It was fine, which isn't my highest rating by any stretch.
Right.
But it was better than I expected, to be honest.
Okay.
And I've always said, like, I don't think you need to watch it. And I still hold to that. Like, if you just want to understand the MCU, you don't need to watch it. But there were some nice little hints dropped along in there that I'm like, oh yeah, that does pay off and that'll work. I would really want to see like digitally reinserted Mark Ruffalo into there and see if I would enjoy it better or something.
Yeah, a little better.
Yeah. It just slows down in the second half was my big thing. But then I've been watching Thor and Thor Dark World and the original Avengers movie and all of that. So I've actually been enjoying just going back and doing a nostalgia tour of the MCU.
Nice.
Bryce, what have you been on the lookout for?
Hey, we got a pick from a little while back from Rob. Rob writes, hey, Cordkillers, I have a suggestion for you for a new show to check out. It's called Harrow, and it stars Ioan Gruffudd from Fantastic Four or Hornblower or Forever as Daniel Harrow, a British-born medical examiner working in the city of Brisbane, Australia. Each episode has a body of the week story and a continuing plot that progresses through the entire season. The show is an Australian and U.S. co-production between the Australian Broadcasting Corporation and Disney-owned ABC Studios International. Interestingly, it is the second ABC series where Gruffudd portrays a coroner with a dark secret who disregards authority and plays by his own rules and doesn't suffer fools gladly. The first was 2014's Forever. It's a great series that might fill Tom's tropical murder quota after he runs out of episodes of Death in Paradise. There are only 10 episodes so far, though it has already been renewed for a second season. Rob W. from Redcliffe, Australia. Thank you, Rob. 10 episodes are streaming now on Hulu in the U.S. Check something like justwatch.com if you're outside the U.S. for where to find Harrow.
Harrow. I guess Brisbane, Australia can qualify as tropical. I'll give it a go.
I've been there. Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah, why not?
I saw some koalas there. It was a good time.
Yeah. No, this is great. Thank you, Rob. I appreciate that. I like a good procedural murder mystery with palm trees. This is great. If you got something we should be on the lookout for, email us cordkillers@gmail.com. Real quickly, I do want to mention that Brian and I do lots of other stuff to make the world go around. And one way you can keep up with all the different things that I do, I write books. I do podcasts about tech news. I'm going to be in Toronto in July. If you want to know, like, what are all these other shows you do? Where are you going to be? What's going on? There's one place to go, and it'll keep you a little bit up to date on a variety of things, as well as giving you the info on what I'm doing. It's called Free Tom Newsletter at freetomnewsletter.com. Now, it may end up one day, if I get more than 1,000 subscribers, free me from my shackles, but more importantly, it'll keep you informed. So go check it out, freetomnewsletter.com. Let's move on to the front lines.
Frontlines.
Cable and satellite television lost 1 million pay TV subscribers in Q1. Brian, it must be the housing market. That's what they told us 5 years ago. This is compared to the 3.2 million subscribers lost in 2018 as a whole. So they're already on pace for a bigger loss this year than last year. AT&T led the way, losing 544,000 subscribers across UVerse and DirecTV. Dish lost 266,000. That includes Sling TV. Comcast lost 121,000. Charter lost 152,000. Mediacom lost 53,000. Altice Suddenlink lost a combined 10,000. And BTIG analyst Rich Greenfield called these results, quote, the worst multi-channel video quarter subscription lost in history.
Dude, I got to tell you, I think that they've just given up. I think that for 5 years, we saw them actively putting up resistance, trying to create incentives to trap people in their cable stuff just long enough. And I think 5 years was enough time for them to put together either their dumb pipe solution or their over-the-top network alternatives. And now that they have them in place, they don't care. Let all of those cable subscribers go away because everybody has their next generation option all lined up.
Yeah, I feel like they wanted time to get their new plan in place. And when I said Sling was included in the Dish number, the Sling number was an increase of like 7,000 or 8,000. It wasn't that big, honestly, but at least it was an increase. So these other services, whether it's alternate TV services or whether it's just, we're gonna make our money off the internet service that we provide, that's where they're focusing now. And they just know it's going to be a slow degradation of the rest of cable as it goes along.
Yep. And meanwhile, they're going to have all these new press releases to talk about their over-the-top offerings, how they're exploding and doing better and better. Meanwhile, Cavo, the all-in-one set-top box controller, is dropping its price to $59.95, down from $99.95. But the mandatory service plans are going up to $3.99 per month from $1.99, and the annual plan jumps from $39.99 to $39.99 from $19.99. It's also adding new features like Telescope that lets you see what Cavo is seeing when it's using its screen recognition. This doesn't go to the cloud, just to your phone, and it's pitched as a parental control feature. You can now control the Cavo remotely with an iOS app. The update also adds support for Sonos.
Yeah, so Chuck, I don't know, are you familiar with Cavo?
No, actually, I've never even heard of it.
So this is a really cool set-top box that was done on a Kickstarter, and it uses some of the normal things that multi-channel like universal remotes do, like infrared control, but it also has some machine learning vision that can see your screen and be able to tell what you're looking at, so that it knows like, oh, you're watching this right now, or that must be the Roku. I can switch to this other service to make it easier for you to just say, I want to watch this, go to it. And it can control all of those things.
I like that.
They're adding this ability now to say, well, we're looking at your screen anyway to do some of this stuff. What if we let you view your screen? We're not going to be creepy and do a cloud service where we're storing what you're watching. It'll just go straight from your Cavo box over the internet to your phone, and you can use that as parental control if the babysitter is there, and or maybe if you want to actually like set it up for your parents or grandparents, and they're having some troubleshooting problems, you could look on your phone and help walk them through menus and stuff. I think this is really interesting.
I think that the future, man, is figuring out how to entertain us very efficiently. And I like it. I'm for it. Yeah.
CBS All Access censored the animated short In the Good Fight. I don't know if we like this or not. The latest episode has a black screen emblazoned with the message, CBS has censored this content. This appears just before the weekly animated short. Often Jonathan Colton does the music for these shorts. Deadline says the scene was flagged by CBS Standards and Practices Division, and this was the compromise because the producers wanted to leave the content in. The Standards and Practices folks said you can't do it. And so they agreed to just put up a big black screen.
This seems like kind of a win-win. I guess it's, you know what, maybe a win-win for the show because just enough controversy because I got to tell you, I had no interest in checking out The Good Fight, but now seeing something that sounds like things I remember from Comedy Central and South Park makes me want to say like, okay, well, what are they talking about that has CBS so delicate about it?
Yeah, it's funny because even before this little bit happened, the shorts, those animated shorts is what I've been hearing the most about, and people saying, "Oh, you got it." I checked it out for that, and now the show is also great. So this as just like another little like nudge, even though it's theoretically negative for them, it does lend itself well for the actual show. I think
it's probably a net positive for The Good Fight. I find it fascinating that CBS Standards and Practices, having once worked for CBS, may or may not have a leg to stand on here. Like it may just be like, no, we don't allow this on broadcast television. And they're like, we're not broadcast television.
So not
CBS
broadcast
All
television.
Access.
Yeah.
And like, sorry, says right here in our employee manual, we don't allow this. You can't have it. Or is there a legitimate like, well, even though it's streaming, we could get into, some kind of defamation issue or who knows, because we don't know what's in the censored thing.
Or even they could just say that's not CBS. Like CBS doesn't do that. You want to do something that's off-brand for us.
That's not our brand.
Right.
We're the Tiffany Network.
Netflix is rolling out some machine learning to its audio on streams, adapting to network conditions to optimize sound. People with streaming boxes, speakers, and sound bars that support Dolby 5.1 and Dolby Atmos sound will benefit from the new feature. Is this a case of machine learning being a buzzword, or do we feel like this is real machine learning stuff?
No, I think the machine learning is probably the least interesting part of this. I mean, this is just machine learning being a yeoman thing that you throw at a problem. They already do this on video. And with video, it's helped Netflix become quite a bit more stable. It knows what your connection is and can give you the right amount of bits to keep your picture looking as good as it can without doing pausing and stuttering. I don't know if most people have noticed this, but Netflix has improved on that quite a bit over the years. Considerably. Yeah. And so now they're like, but our audio has always just been, secondary. What if we did the same thing with audio to make it sound better?
Yep. I'm on board.
Twitter announced a new program, or actually several new programs with the NFL, ESPN, Viacom, Major League Soccer, Live Nation, and Activision Blizzard.
What?
Twitter also announced a deal with Univision Communications for more premium sports, news, and entertainment content. And Twitter announced content from the Wall Street Journal and Time Magazine. I think I find this significant because one of the things we keep talking about is, okay, We've definitely got our solution for on-demand situation comedies, dramas, the things that we want to sit down and watch when we want to watch them. What about the live stuff? What about sports? What about news? What about events? What about concerts? YouTube is one of those. We heard about the Lollapalooza deal added to the Coachella. It feels like maybe Twitter, maybe some others out there could be the solution for sports and news as well.
Well, and it certainly is an organic fit because that's where everybody runs to talk about anything live happening. But we haven't seen people flock to the idea of Twitter as a video destination to watch the stuff live.
Not yet. That's the trick. It's not an origin point for anything. It's always it's just a sounding board for all that stuff.
Yeah, a little of a chicken and egg problem with Twitter, right? Which is like, I don't go there for video until they have the video. But to get the video, they're going to have to prove that people go there for video. So
right.
Sinclair Media, a player in regional broadcasting already, has agreed to buy the 21 regional sports networks that Disney acquired from Fox. Disney agreed to sell the networks within 90 days of acquiring them as part of its regulatory approval of the purchase of Fox assets. So thank goodness it's out of the hands of a monopolistic giant behemoth of Disney and into the hands of a monolithic monopolistic regional carrier.
Welcome to modern culture.
Yeah.
Everything.
Well, it is an interesting acquisition because Sinclair is known for radio stations, some newspapers, local television stations, and these are regional sports networks. But regional sports networks often are what people get in their everything package. Like, I want to see all the basketball, and then they throw in all the regional sports networks that carry those basketball teams. So this could launch Sinclair into becoming more of a player in this space, or it could be, you were a sucker for buying this thing that's not going to be relevant because everything's shifting. Yeah. All right, let's move on to some dispatches from the front. You heard Brian refer to Onder earlier in the show. Onder wrote, I decided to give you an infinity % raise. I don't know why I waited so long. I set up a Patreon account and became your boss while I was listening to Spoilering Time. First of all, thank you for Cupcake and Dino General Services. That's what we do. We do.
Cupcake and Dino.
Yeah.
It's in my head already.
Yeah.
Anders says, second, thank you for helping me keep my Netflix queue longer than humanly possible. And third,
spoilers.
He says some thank yous about our spoiler in time discussion of Avengers Endgame that I don't think we can say without spoiling Avengers Endgame, so we won't. But you're welcome, Onder. Onder says this subscription is specifically to support the backward watching order for the MCU discussed last week. 9 of 10 subscribers left.
Meanwhile, Sean writes in and says, hey, Killers, some time ago you discussed the idea of cultural Sherpas who could guide people through some of the sprawling universes that have sprung up in various parts of our culture. I'm having that experience with the MCU. I like a good superhero movie, but seldom go out of my way to watch them. In the MCU, I saw Iron Man 1 and 2 way back when, and that was it. So with the upcoming release of Endgame, a friend offered to give me a quick movie crash course in the MCU. We watched Guardians 2, Doctor Strange, Civil War, Thor Ragnarok, and Infinity War. It was when we were a couple of movies in that I realized I was having the Sherpa experience. When it was done, I felt like I had a pretty good handle on the MCU, and I'm looking forward to seeing Endgame soon. I thought you might find it interesting given some of your recent discussions with people who weren't MCU complete. Keep up the great work. Thank you very much, Sean.
Yeah, I mean, I'm tempted to kind of, look at that list and go, does that give him everything he wants? But that's the point of the Sherpa. You just put your trust that they will
guide you. They will guide you.
Everything you need and bring you up the mountain. Also got this email from Jesse, aka Hometown Rival in Indianapolis, about the cancellation of the Santa Clarita Diet. Brian and I were speculating that, maybe Netflix canceling things 3 seasons in isn't a big deal. Brian commented that it's, they're able to check a box for offering a niche show. I mentioned that starting these shows could entice people to subscribe because they're able to get the complete experience at 3 seasons. But Jesse says these shows are often ended abruptly, leaving fans 100% unsatisfied. Take Sense8. As an example, Netflix ultimately corrected this by producing a 2-hour series finale. I'm looking at Big Mouth entering its 3rd season and pondering its fate. And as a fan of Santa Clarita Diet, I'm unlikely to recommend it to anyone because season 3 ended with multiple story arcs left to explore. Perhaps I'm oversensitive about wanting a show to have a complete arc before I'm willing to invest my time. On the other hand, there's so much great content to watch. It seems odd to focus my energy on something that's incomplete. There's a half dozen or more Netflix originals on my list, and I'll probably hold off on all of them until their fate is known. If this keeps up, I may start asking myself why I bother subscribing to Netflix every month and pause it until I know there's a show or movie I'm ready and able to enjoy.
I mean, if it becomes known that Netflix tends to cancel things after a 3rd season, I gotta feel like the natural consequence will be more show producers will kind of have a 3-season arc and then maybe a possibility to keep on going if it's a runaway hit. And that doesn't strike me as bad. I don't know that I need TV shows to go on forever because I think I enjoy consuming all of a thing and going on to the next one. What about you, Chuck?
Yeah, I'm totally into giving shows a point of closure. But it's funny with the letter sort of called out as something that we deal with in books, right? Because it's like science fiction and fantasy is driven by series. And, publishers will cancel a series before it gets to its conclusion. And then readers become trained on that. And they say, well, we're not going to read a series until it's done, which now publishers, you're selling fewer books. So the publisher's like, well, now we'll cut it off even sooner because no one's buying the series yet. And so it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, which is tough.
Although in the chat, Beatmaster80 has correctly called me out with the one exception to the rule, which of course is The Good Place. It should go on forever and ever and ever. It will never get
fair. Yeah, the exception that proves the rule is The Good Place. Absolutely.
Yeah. But also I'm looking forward to that ending. Like I want to see what they're gonna do.
How they could do it.
How they're gonna. It's gonna be good.
The other thing I want to add to this Netflix thing is Netflix's danger is that they become. Remember, they're like, we want to become HBO before HBO becomes us. Except they don't want to become HBO in the sense that you put HBO on pause when Game of Thrones is done if there's nothing else you want to watch on HBO, and you wait until there's something you want to watch. Right now, Netflix is seen as like, oh, there's always something on Netflix.
Yeah.
And so they have to figure out how to avoid that as they lose more and more of these partner deals and become a place of Netflix originals.
Another good comment in the chat room comes from normal TV shows tend to need 4 seasons in order to hit syndication. Netflix is in that unique position that they could give 2 craps about syndication. And maybe that's why they're doing it the way that they're doing it.
Could be. But then I do think they should have a close. They should be able to draw the show to a close at 3 to 5 seasons or something like that.
Yeah, they should give warnings or build in the contracts where they'll always authorize a special to close out the plots or something like that. Yeah.
And they probably have a better hit rate than any other TV channel in terms of like finishing off their series. I mean, if you compare them to HBO generally finishes their shows off, but does an NBC or a CBS or a Fox? Certainly not at the same percentage.
Deadwood is an exception in that it just sort of ended.
Yeah.
Well, Chuck Wendig, thank you so much for coming here to talk about Foxes with Brian and staying to talk about cord cutting. This has been great.
Absolutely. This has been great. Thanks for having me, guys.
Hey, Chuck, real quick. I'm a huge fan of audiobooks. Which of your books should I listen and buy the audiobook of right now?
If you really like audio, the Star Wars Aftermath series is pretty amazing. Invasive is great with XE Sands. And then the Wanderers one coming up has 2 narrators, so it's kind of a 1-2 punch. So that's a pre-order because that's out in July.
Done and done.
If folks want to find out more of what you're writing, what you're talking about, what you're doing these days, where should they go?
TerribleMinds.com is pretty much my central location on the internet. You can find everything you require there, what I'm working on, where I'm going to be, and I will be on tour in July, so I'll kind of be bopping all over the country. And also I am on Twitter. It's a terrible hell place, but we're all there. And I am at Chuck Wendig on Twitter.
Awesome. Excellent, folks. Our website is cordkillers.com. Our email address is cordkillers@gmail.com. And we're live on twitch.tv/Night Attack, which is also carried on diamondclub.tv Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. We will talk to you again next time.
Hey guys, Brian and Tom here, and it's just the same old message at the end of the credits, just like always.
That's right, Brian. Nothing new here except your name showing up.
Oh my gosh,
because
I've got a name.
You just supported us on Patreon.
Yeah, all those $5 donors. Look at that. That's your name in pixels. We're gonna make you famous, kid. Put your name in pixels on the internet.
Names in there, but some of you are new. Some of you aren't there. It's sad. What can they do, Brian?
I mean, they could go to patreon.com/Cordkillers and pledge $5 an episode and be one of these amazing people, like this one.
Amazing.
Oh, look at that name right there.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.